everybody. Welcome to That Expert Show, where you help run the show. I'm Anna Canzano. We have a great episode lined up for you today. We're talking about social media strategies. Whether you run a business, own a business, or an entrepreneur, or you do the social media for a business, maybe you're in the nonprofit world, or maybe you're just on social media for fun. I'm going to guess that you, just like I, have wondered, what is the secret sauce? When you look on Instagram and you see somebody that has like 50,000 followers, or somebody that has, a gajillion fans on Facebook or Twitter, how is it that they have achieved that much of a following? I mean, unless you're like Lady Gaga or some kind of other type of celebrity. I know I've looked and I'm curious about businesses that seem relatively small, like they have narrow niches, but they have this incredible following on social media. So we have found a fantastic expert to talk with today. She's a social media consultant, a trainer, a community manager, as well as a keynote speaker. She is a regularly featured expert on CBS, and she joins us live from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina today. Let's welcome Doreen Morin Van Dam. Doreen, thanks for being with us.
Hi, everybody. So glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being with us. And this is a topic that has already generated a lot of interest from the people who follow That Expert Show. And I want to lead off with just the basic question, and it comes from Deborah. She wants to know, how do you generate a healthy number of likes and followers organically? And that's the key word here, organically, when you are just starting a new business. This is for Deborah, who had the question from Instagram.
Okay, so organically means that you don't put ads out there, right? And that it's genuine. They're authentic engagements. So the first piece of that is that you have to have a strategy. Okay, you have to understand who you're targeting. So you have to know your audience. Often when I talk to business owners, I'll say, well, who do you want to sell to? And they'll go, everybody. Well, you can't target an ad to everybody. So you have to really know who is your most ideal customer, who is the person that will purchase from you the most, who is most likely to do that. So once you have that, you can create what's called an avatar, which is kind of like a persona for the person that you are targeting. You maybe give them an age, give them some hobbies, of course, identify whether they're more likely to be male or female. And once you have your avatar, you can really start talking to that person that you're trying to sell to. So that's really the secret sauce. And anybody that has an active following understands that you have to be present. There's lots of tools out there that you can use to schedule content out, but what you can't automate is real engagement. So if you are scheduling tweets or you're scheduling things on your Facebook page, but you're not there to answer questions, you're not there to have a conversation, and people will catch on really quick. So in order to be authentic and to grow organically, you have to be present every day, and you have to answer questions, you have to respond, and you have to do follow-up questions, because the Facebook algorithm, if we're talking about Facebook, works. More people see your post if more people have engagement, if more comments are there, more likes are there, more reactions are there. Because then Facebook's like, something's going on over here. Let me show it to more people. So that's how you can grow organically.
That's interesting, because the comment that I've also heard, and in fact, one of the comments about the post that we created to promote this show came from Chelsea on Facebook, who said that one of her pet peeves is actually when entities or people post all the time just to post something. So is there such a thing as overposting, and where is that balance between being present and putting content out there versus spamming people, which we all know can be really annoying?
There is definitely such a thing as overposting, and there's definitely different types of posts. So if you're posting just to get seen in the news feed, it's pretty obvious, right? We also have this thing that we call vague booking, where people will post an update on their Facebook that says, "Oh, I'm so tired," or "Oh, I can't believe this just happened." and then there's no story to it, right? They just want attention. They're attention seekers. And it's definitely annoying. If you're a brand, you should have a strategy, right? You should have a whole list of different types of posts. You want to have a promotional post. You want to have fun posts. You want to have questions. You want to provide tips, information, maybe do a live video. You have to have a whole kind of toolbox full of different types of content. And then once you start putting that out, you can see what your audience, your current audience is reacting to. And so every week you should look at your analytics, and then whatever they react to the most, do more of the things that they liked. It might be National Pet Day and a picture of the owner of the company, right, with a cute kitty cat. Or it might be a fun Friday video that you find on Facebook that you're sharing. You didn't even have to create it yourself, but if you find it on Facebook and somebody's already had lots of views on it, and it goes well with your industry and it's targeted at that same avatar you're trying to reach, then that's a really good strategy, especially on, like, say, a Friday where people are kind of more relaxed, to share a fun video. And as long as it's in line with your branding and who you're trying to reach, and that's a really great way to get some organic reach.
It's interesting because I know that we're talking about businesses, and a lot of these are fundamentally marketing concepts that we're now applying to the new Wild West of social media. But
Yes.
I know that nonprofits struggle a lot of the time to gain social media following too, because they're looking for donations, or they're looking for volunteers, for example. They're looking for some kind of action from the audience. And that's, Lloyd, for example, on Facebook has a question about nonprofits. He wants to know he'd like to find out how to get people to volunteer. He sees them volunteering for things that essentially take no or not much effort. How do you get them to volunteer for community projects that require some strength, agility, and some manual labor? He says he has asked for this on social media several times, but does not get very much response.
Okay, so the key with nonprofits is that it has to have an emotional component. It's all about, figuring out what triggers, and there are certain industries that negative reactions, negative emotion works. Think about politics, right? But nonprofits, you want to get tearjerkers. You want to find the stories. Nonprofits lend themselves really well for storytelling. So if this person, I forget the name, I'm sorry that you just told me had this question, if he is looking for specific people, I would say go to the ideal volunteer that he already has that fits that profile and say, hey, we need more people like you to come out. Can I do an interview with you? Can we go live on the set of wherever you're working? And can we do a plea, an emotional plea, to find other people like you? And maybe he can invite some friends to come. Maybe it can be a special occasion and say, hey, you're a great worker. We would love to have more people like you. Who do you know that maybe we could serve dinner to and can come out for a couple of hours, right? And then do a video and do a live or recorded video and show how easy it is to volunteer, right? How easy it is to come out for a couple of hours, and what a difference it makes. Do before and after shots, and to say, don't you want to be part of this? You want to provoke that emotion of, hey, I want that. And especially if it's a community type thing, go into the community and show the results of what does. But people don't necessarily do what you say, they do what you do. So if you can show people acting in the community and showing them being a volunteer, what it looks like, maybe follow them from their car, walking, say they're working with horses, into the barn, what does a typical 2-hour shift as a volunteer look like, and those kind of videos will absolutely 100% work, because people are going to identify with the person on the other side of the camera. They're going to feel like, well, that could be me. I have 2 hours. I look just like that person. I could totally do that. Make it easy for them to volunteer as well. But I think that just asking or begging or, getting upset saying, hey, we put out a call 5 times and nobody's coming, That is not going to work on social media. It just isn't.
Yeah, shaming people to try to get them to volunteer probably isn't going to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's interesting because you mentioned something about Facebook groups, and one of the roles that you play is as a community manager, which is fascinating. I haven't thought about this. I know Facebook groups are popular. I am a member of several groups, like too many right now to count because I've just joined them along the way, and I'm more active in some groups than others. But I haven't created a Facebook group yet, and you're saying like this is the wave right now. This is how people are getting their brand awareness out there in a more authentic way.
Yes, Facebook is actually pushing people towards groups. And I'll tell you a secret, they're actually going to start allowing you to advertise into groups or advertise to get people into groups this fall. So that's really exciting. So lots of things are coming. You can now actually put your Facebook advertising pixel in your group as well. So they're really making a lot of changes that will push groups out even more. But here's what happens. Say you have a new customer, a new client, a new volunteer for your nonprofit, and they've come out once. How do you stay connected to them? You know, if you have a group text, they might pull themselves out. Email, you know, could work, but it's a little bit impersonal. Where do people spend their time? At night in front of the TV? A lot of people have second screens, right? They watch a show, but they're on their phone. So if you can have a group and you're on Facebook and you can be seen in that group. And the other thing that happens with groups is that it's not just a conversation with the brand with one customer. It's a conversation among customers, among volunteers, among people that are using the same services. So you basically can take your customer from a new customer or client through the whole gamut of different emotions and make them into a super fan, right? Because that's ultimately what we want. We want other people to start talking about your nonprofit or your brand without. And I'm a super, you know, I can use an example as a local, I'm a runner, and as a local running group, we run with a local running store. Well, I'll go in the store and buy myself a t-shirt that has their logo on it. So I'm going to advertise for them, and I'm paying them money, and I'm out in the community advertising for them because I love them. That's a super fan. And so you can do that in groups. You can take, you know, all the things that you have, give behind the scenes look, give them discounts, specials. You can even do research in that group, right? Because that's another cool thing to do. If you're a nonprofit, ask them, you know, what else can we do? What kind of party do you want? You know, what kind of discounts do you want? You know, where can we find more volunteers? And use the power of those people that already love you to create super fans.
That is fascinating. I guess I've been intimidated with the idea of creating a group because I just didn't know how many people would join that group. It's like goes back to that high school mentality is, does anybody really like me or not? I don't know.
Well, and I'll use an example. I joined a group this morning that was started this morning, and by the time I got into it, it was 7 hours old. It had 450 people in it.
Whoa, that's amazing. And you said that you actually manage a group of like 31,000 or something like that. That's crazy.
Yes. I work for a company that sells online courses, and we have a community of 31,000 plus social media managers. So we're in there. I'm the community managers, but I have some volunteer moderators that help me out, and we have to do very little posting because the members amongst themselves discuss a lot of things and ask questions and help each other. And it's a super active community. So that is definitely, if you are a brand, if you're a company and you haven't really thought about that, that's a really good way to get in the minds and views of current and potential customers.
Okay, so let's talk about Instagram, which I'll admit I was very reluctant to even get involved with Instagram. I felt like with Facebook and Twitter, I had enough to manage in terms of social profiles, and there's only so much time in the day. When it comes to Instagram, you know, what is the secret? Because I look at people's profiles and I'm mystified as to how this person has, you know, 50,000 followers or whatever they are on Instagram. And I guess it's less mystifying when I see their content, and a lot of the times it's a really pretty woman who is posting really vivacious looking photos of herself, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, guys are liking her photos. Short of that, and short of actually purchasing Instagram followers, what are your ideas for Instagram?
Okay, so there is a couple of different things, and you touched on one of them. There are definitely people out there that are using automated tools, and that can either purchase followers to give themselves a boost. Say you're at 1,000, you want to get to 10,000, because at 10,000 that unlocks certain features. So you can purchase followers that way. Of course, you can run ads to your account, but those that are really successful on Instagram is to be unique, to be different, right? To have content that they can't find anybody else. And I'll use an example, two guys with beards. I don't know if you've ever seen them or follow them, but they're two friends. They decorate their beards every day.
Yes.
And they started doing that for fun. It was totally different. People started liking it and they grew their account. If you were to try that today, you would be be considered like, oh, you're, copycatting them. So coming up with a really cool content idea that's different, that hasn't really been done. I mean, think about people of New York. Somebody started taking pictures and then asking other people to take pictures and send them to them. And that's how that started. Taking pictures of people in New York City. So come up with a content idea that's different. The other part to this is nothing comes free. So you have to spend either money, like in ads, or buying followers, which is something that I don't advocate, or you have to spend your time. And people that have really engaged communities on Instagram, have really engaged followers, and have really what essentially are like super fans of their account, are people who spend lots and lots, and I'm talking hours every day on Instagram. So they're not just waiting for people to come to them. They're going out into the Instagram community and researching hashtags and going onto other people's profiles and having conversations and having direct message conversations and creating all sorts of stories and tagging people. So there's a lot of stuff on the back end that you don't see, but people that have a true community and they're growing and they're active. Those are the people, and you can see that if you see somebody with 50,000 followers and they post something in their feed and only 40 people like it, they've bought followers. Okay, so that's you can kind of see it that way. If they have a super engaged community and they always have a story going on, you'll know. You can see that people, as soon as they post something, people start liking it and commenting it and asking questions. People that are very transparent do really well. Whether they're celebrity or not, if you talk about the pains you're going through or the struggles you have or the fun you have. I mean, travel, of course, and food are big on Instagram, but if you can kind of put a twist on that, maybe you have a cute child that you take with you when you travel, or a cute dog, or you wear a bandana, every day in the picture, the same bandana, or, something that's unique that starts to be recognized, that people want to follow, and they want to have a piece. They want to know what's going to happen tomorrow in the story. That's when you hook them.
So when you talk about buying Instagram followers, I mean, I have no concept of what that even costs. Can you buy Twitter followers as well? Like, if you're a business and you want to make that investment, what kind of budget do you need to have to buy followers?
It's very cheap. Unfortunately, it's very cheap. I mean, it's like $5, $10, $20, and you can get a bunch of followers. What happens, though, is that those people aren't going to engage, first of all. So you have this inflated, we call it a vanity number, this inflated number of followers, and it might look good, and you might get a couple of real people coming to follow you. But what happens is, especially on Facebook, the algorithm is now shot, right? So you have 1,000 followers, but every time you post a picture, maybe 1 or 0 people do anything. So Facebook's like, these followers are dumb, and your page is now going to be demoted in a way, not really demoted, but they're not going to have any engagement. And so it's really hard to recover from that. So you might have a vanity number that looks really good, but you're going to have no engagement numbers. And we always say in our industry, it's much better to have 500 people on your Facebook page and get 300 engaged than have 50,000 people and have 300 engaged, right?
Interesting. Right.
So it's
Okay.
really not how many people are on your page or follow you or like you or follow you on Twitter, on Instagram. It's the engagement number that you want to look at, and then a percentage of that.
Well, and frankly, I mean, when it comes to, for content producers, for sponsors, for people who might want to endorse you, they're also looking at those engagement numbers as well. Let's talk a
Right.
little bit about hashtags. You mentioned hashtags and researching hashtags. What is the secret there? And are hashtags more important in places like Instagram and Twitter and even LinkedIn versus Facebook?
Yes. So, it kind of it kind of changes depending on when you talk. It's 2019. They're actually active on all platforms. So LinkedIn brought them back last year. So they're now, or actually activated them. So they're active on LinkedIn. They are pushing them. Pinterest brought them back. They were active about 6, 7 years ago. A lot of the old pins have them. Then they said, no, don't use hashtags. Now they're like, yes, they're back. They're working. They're searchable. Of course, Twitter, it works super well. And then on Instagram, that's the way you find content. So on Instagram, there's a maximum number of hashtags you can use, which is 30. And what I usually recommend is going in about 4 different categories. So the first category would be find hashtags that have to do with the image that you're posting. Say it's a boat on the water and there's a person in it. You might find a hashtag, boating today, whatever it might be. And you look at, kind of look at how often that hashtag is used, right? So that's the first one. The second one would be location. You want to have some location hashtags. Say, I'm in Myrtle Beach. I might say Myrtle Beach, South Carolina as a hashtag, or the Myrtle Beach area is known as the Grand Strand, so I might use that hashtag. So location is next. Then your own branded hashtags. So you want to find hashtags that, or create them. As you can see behind me, I have a hashtag more media. I don't use it as often as I should, but on Instagram, if you're a brand, and a hashtag for everything you do so people can find your feed. And the idea is that you want other people to start using it when they talk about you. And bigger brands, of course, very good at that. We're all using hashtag Nike or, any of those type of things. And then the last one is you want to have, see if it's seasonal, if it's a pet of the day, or, there's something, maybe it's almost Easter, or it's Good Friday, or it's, National Margarita Day. You might find a popular hashtags. And then the other part that you have to make sure is that you don't pick hashtags that are all overused. Because if you have all hashtags, say you use 30 hashtags that have been used over 1 million times, you get down in the feed really fast because they're so popular that other people are using them within a second or 5 seconds or 10 seconds of you. So then they're not as discoverable. So if you have a hashtag that's maybe been used 5,000 times or 10,000 times, not as much as say 1 million or 5 million, then they last a little bit longer. So when people go click on the hashtag, your picture is still kind of up on the top. So you kind of have to play that game, and you have to always look at which hashtag performed better, where did people come from, how did they find you. And the same, to flip it around, the same thing is when you go looking for hashtags, what are people using, what is popular right now, what day of the week is it, what kind of content can I find. But there's definitely a little bit of that. And there have been some rumors going around that, the Instagram algorithm was changing and you should only use 4 hashtags. No, it's crazy. Use up to 30 if you want. It doesn't matter whether they go in the comments, in the first comment, or in the description. Some people have a preference one over the other. It really doesn't matter. Sometimes it matters depending on what tool you use to schedule your post, if you're doing that. But have a variety of hashtags, and have a variety of hashtags that have different meanings, but kind of group them together like that. And I'll give you a power tip if you're watching this. If you have hashtags that you use frequently, make little notes on your smartphone and categorize them in notes, and so you can copy and paste them very easily, especially if you use your your location ones and your branded ones that you'd use often, you can just kind of copy and paste them so you don't have to keep typing them in.
Yeah, because they can be a little cumbersome to type in. And you mentioned, so it doesn't matter whether you put the hashtag in the comment or in the actual post itself. Is there an advantage to either?
Sure. If you're using a scheduling tool and you want them in the comment, you actually have to make sure you're there, right? So, because you can't schedule a comment. So you'd have it go out at a certain time and then you'd have to go to the post and then put them in there. Just for that reason alone, it might be more advantageous to put them in the description. Some people use like dividers, like little dots, or, like, say you're a soccer club, you might use a soccer ball, some kind of emoji to push out the description, and then kind of almost have like a blank slate, and then underneath it have the hashtags. Some people still like putting hashtags in the descriptions as they're using their words. I don't think that looks as good, but I mean, everybody on Instagram uses hashtags, so shouldn't come as a surprise that they're there, right? So therefore, just putting them in the description, I find, is fine. And the people know where they are, they can see them, and they can click on them, and they can say, oh, well, let me check this one out, kind of thing. So really doesn't have much impact.
What about the time frame in which you're creating posts? I've heard that, especially if you're on the West Coast, for example, and you might have people hopping onto Instagram as early as 6 in the morning. Say your target demographic is like stay-at-home moms who are just waking up in the morning, kind of scrolling through their feed to start their day before the kids get up, that if you're on the West Coast, post as early as 3 in the morning Pacific time so that you are showing up for people's feeds at 6 in the morning on the East Coast.
Right. And that's a totally a tactic that I use, but you use a schedule for that, because I don't advocate you getting up at 3 a.m. and doing that, right? So you schedule that post to go out. Sure. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that businesses make, that they think they should post between, 9 and 5. Most people are going to be on social media at 6 in the morning or 9 o'clock at night. That's when they have time to sit down and scroll through. Then you want to be front of mind. So you want to be in their feed. So you have to figure out when your avatar is going to be online. I think it was Loves that had a campaign a couple of years ago. I read a case study on them that they realized that a lot of their moms were desperate to talk to other moms at 2 a.m. And I think that it makes sense, right? That's when they're changing diapers and nursing or bottle feeding their babies.
Yes.
And they started employing a community manager that was online, that was answering questions and talking to those moms. That's when they needed the support. And it makes sense, right? I love that. I thought that was great. They realized the need and then they implemented that. So yeah, definitely. But I would say, look at your analytics. If you have a business account on Instagram and you're worried about, when you should post, your analytics should tell you what time of day works best. On Facebook, it definitely tells you when your customers, your current Facebook followers are online as a page. So if they're online Wednesdays between 12 and 1, if that is the peak, you should probably post it at Wednesday at 12, if that's going to be online between 12 and 1, to hit them as best as you can. And going back to Facebook groups, they give you analytics as well, and they'll tell you when your current members are online, so you can also post then to catch the most of them if you want.
Is it vital these days? Because I find it hard to just keep up. I mean, between Snapchat and Instagram, I'm terrible at creating Instagram stories. I don't know that I've ever created one really successfully, and I'm probably missing out in that realm. But I like, as a pseudo business, an entrepreneur, I feel this pressure to sort of try to be everywhere, including Instagram TV, which is now on the rise. What is your advice when it comes to that? Do you try to have a little bit in each arena, or do you just try to focus really intensely on a couple of these platforms and do them well?
Definitely the latter, but what I suggest to everybody is do a sit down with somebody and do a social media marketing plan. It could be part of your regular marketing plan because you might be a business that already does print advertising or Google ads. But look at what you have, right? You can't measure what you don't know. So you have to have a starting point. So in a social media marketing plan, you should have an audit of what you're doing currently, how all those things are working, what your website traffic looks like, right? But make sure you have Google Analytics on there. And then also do a competitors analysis, which is something that I recommend. So you look at other people who are either local to you that have the same size business, or better, somebody that's doing the same thing you're doing in a different location. And look at what platforms they're on and what's working for them. And when you put all of those things together, you come up with a social media strategy. And that strategy could include a 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, even a 2-year plan where you might say, well, Twitter's going really well. We're getting traffic to the website. We're going to start doing Instagram stories. The plan is to do 3 stories a week. This is what we're going to work on. Every month, we're going to make sure that the data still tells us to keep going. And after 3 months, we're going to sit back down and see if that's worth it to keep going with the Instagram stories or if we should put our efforts somewhere else. But if you're just starting somewhere and doing things scattered everywhere, you don't really know what works. You get frazzled. Your content's not going to look good. And there's nothing for you to go back to and say, well, I should have done this or that. So getting a strategy on paper where you can go look back and then measure and look at your data to see what works and what doesn't, I think is the best plan. So no, you don't have to be everywhere.
Okay, I have 2 last questions for you. One goes back to the hashtag issue. Is there a favorite website or 2 that you can suggest for researching hashtags? And, what is popular but not so popular that you're just one of millions of people using the same hashtag?
Yeah, there's a tool that I use called Hashtagify. And that's really easy to use, and you can put in a hashtag and it tells you how popular it is, but also tells you related hashtags. So say you're a plastic surgeon and you do a facelift and you might want to find some other complementary hashtags that other people might be using so they can discover your content. You put facelift in there in the tool and it will come up with other hashtags that other people are using alongside that one. So it gives you a good idea. There's other tools out there that will tell you, what's popular this week. This day. There's all kinds of tools out there, and it's simple as putting into Google, hashtag tool. Some tools go under, some tools don't last very long, but Hashtagify is one that I use.
Hashtagify, okay. And then the final question comes from Russell on Instagram. He says, how can you get people to quit being so negative about businesses like Amway or Level? He says he does Level, and people are so stuck on negativity.
Well, and Amway, that's a multi-level marketing company, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I think that people feel like they're being sold to. So if you want people to start being negative to you about it, is not talk about the product, but talk about all the things that you do, your freedom, right? If you're a multi-level marketing company and you're doing well and you have the freedom to set the time, maybe being at a word ceremony for your child at school, or maybe you can spend 4 weeks in Europe because you can work from your computer, show and not tell. Show those things that you're doing, show the lifestyle, and not to say, well, when I win this, or, I'm going to get this, or if you buy 5 things and I'm going to go win this trip. Make it about them. Make it about the people on the other side and make them want to crave to be part of what you're doing, right? You want to evoke that emotion. And so as long as you stay positive and show the things that you get to do, and because the freedom that you have in the business that you chose, don't try to sell product, or don't try to sell services, but just show your happiness in your choice. I think that by itself will do a lot. And, have people come to you, right? People are going to at one point come to you. If you're always positive and always smiling and always have fun things to do, people are going to say, what juice are you drinking? I want some of that, right? Because they're watching you. And that's something to remember, that people are we call them lurkers. For every person that comments, there's at least 9 of them that are watching what you're doing. So if you have negative people out there talking to you and saying, this and that, start being really positive yourself, and there's going to be people watching you, and at some point they're going to start coming to you. Turn around what you're doing, and then they will come to you.
Awesome. That is such great information and really helpful tips and strategies here. I want our viewers to know that I will be creating a tip sheet based on Doreen's information that she has shared with us today, because I know this is a lot to process during the interview. So I'll create a tip sheet that I stick on my website, thatexpertshow.com. I'll also tweet it out and put it on Facebook and Instagram. Doreen, thanks so much for giving us your insight today. It's been very helpful.
This was awesome. Thanks for having me. It's fun.
And thank you for joining us for this episode of That Expert Show. Boy, that was a lot to process, a lot of information that she shared with us, but hopefully it will help you, your business, your nonprofit, your venture, whatever it is that you're working on, expand its presence. Like, I know that it's not always easy to catch us live, but you can always connect with us on social media. I'm on Facebook at Anna Canzano, on Twitter and Instagram at That Expert Show. Give us a like if you saw what if you liked what you saw and heard today. We also put the content back out to you on our YouTube channel, which you can find just searching for That Expert Show on YouTube. And sometimes it's easier just to take content in by listening to it if you're driving around town and running errands or working out. You can find That Expert Show as a podcast on Apple iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, all those great platforms as well. All right. Thanks for joining us for this episode of That Expert Show. Hope you could be with us next time, where you help run the show.